There it is. We are live. I am joined by Amanda A. Carpenter, and you are located in upstate New York. Is that what I heard?
Yes, upstate
That's the
New York.
word on the street.
Cold and snowy upstate New York near Lake George.
Near Lake George. I went to school in Newburgh, and that's about, I mean, I know Albany. Where's Lake George? I don't know where Lake George is.
Lake George is about an hour north of Albany. It's like the
Okay.
big Southern Adirondack vacation area.
Okay.
So a lot of people
Heading like toward, is it Saratoga?
north of Saratoga.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. I went up there once for something. I don't even conference, PT conference maybe. We are both doctors of physical therapy. We will touch on that. More importantly, though, right now, for everyone to know, we are co-authors of the Healthy for Life. Right above Amanda's head to her left ear, there's that little light bulb with the plant growing in it. Healthy for Life. We're launching February 4th. We're recording this on January 25th, 2025. Here we are. So Amanda, thank you for joining me. I do have to give a quick shout out to my sponsor, drinkelement.com/fitcare. You go on and get your free sample pack with any order. Best electrolytes on the market. I don't know how you feel about them. Have you tried them? Have you tried Element? She likes them. She doesn't like them. I don't know. It's fine.
They taste too salty for me.
Too salty. Yes. Their whole thing is stay salty.
Yes. Add more water.
Yes. Add more water. Yeah, I'd say a minimum of 30 ounces of water for most folks. I love the flavor. The mango chili had a little spice to it. I like taking that one. That's what I'm drinking right now. It's got a little bit of that kind of good kick for me. Anytime it's cold out, it warms me up, warms up my soul. But hey, that's all we're touching on there. And we're going to talk about souls and heartbreaks and heart math and all these things. So a lot to cover. Amanda is the chapter right after me in our book of 25 collaborators. So this is the third episode we're doing of my, I don't know, we're not going to have all 24 other authors on, but, and your chapter is titled Exercise Beyond Calories and Heartbeats. And I'd love for you to share kind of that encapsulation of where that title comes from.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that. And thank you for having me on and doing this with the book. We had so much fun. So Alana, the lead author, is a dear, dear friend of mine. So happy to bring this out into the world. So yeah, exercise is something that I started intentional exercise when I was in the 6th grade. And it was really driven by the desire. It was a body image issue. So the desire to not be overweight. So I wasn't necessarily overweight. I was a little chunky, as we all are at that age, as puberty is hitting. And so I started to formally exercise, like going to a gym back in those days was like the aerobics step. Remember the Reebok step class? So doing Reebok step class. So that's how it all began. And then I started, I would walk the dog 3 miles a day. And then eventually got into sports, played 3 sports plus club volleyball, and additionally would still walk the dog. And I never really saw it as a problem. Like it was just, this is what I did. Back in those days, from a diet standpoint, we're talking the 90s. So we could eat as much sugar as we wanted to. So I thought I was doing, I had the low fat diet. Thought I was
every time this comes up, and you might even be going there. The snack wells always makes me think of those little snack wells, little chocolate.
Oh,
did you
the
not?
100, yes, the 100 calorie packs.
That came out later. No, it was the snack wells. It was like, I think it was snack wells. It was like a green box, and I remember they had like a chocolate thing, and it was low fat. But I back then I didn't know what the numbers were. But anyway, I always think of that specific.
All advertising, right? All advertising. But the truth was, so I was actually like putting on weight with all that sugar and then just trying to exercise it off. But I didn't know any better. I was just following mainstream stuff as like a 7th grader, right? 7th, 8th grader. But that eventually led me into my profession because like, hey, you love fitness and there's some security in healthcare. We can both laugh about that now. So combine the two and to become a physical therapist. And so I fell into the profession and I actually loved it for for several years. I was always in the orthopedic world. How about you? Orthopedics?
Yeah, pretty much orthopedics.
Yeah.
And yeah, I know, I know a little bit of where you're going, but yeah, my business is fit care, physiotherapy, and wellness now. And the wellness space definitely from the beginning is something that I recognized. We were letting people down being in that orthopedic space. I was in New York City, where, you might see 4 patients at a time. And then that kind of go, and you don't have time to talk about nutrition, stress, sleep, all these other aspects that I think the wellness kind of for us, I think I think we're very aligned in these things based on reading your chapter and things. And But yeah, if that's where you're going, I've been trying to get to that wellness space from the beginning and the fitness space, and I
Mhm.
shifted. I completely went over to the fitness space for a little while, almost not completely denouncing my degree, and I think you had some similar
Mhm.
experiences, but still having that degree and keeping the licensure and all that stuff. I haven't been like forget physical therapy, but yeah, understanding that there is some weight in that doctorate, and having spent over $100,000 on it, I was like, yeah, might as well keep it.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, exactly. Well, in addition, I actually the CProT is certified professional trainer. So I continued to be a personal professional trainer, which just basically means personal trainer with medical license. I could use my medical license for personal training as well. So just always in that fitness. Was a personal trainer all through college and spent hours in the gym. Like and during this time, I always thought that it was healthy for me, but subconsciously behind the scenes my drive was to not gain weight. So but again, like I was telling myself that it was healthy, and I truly didn't know any better. I also didn't really truly until I got my doctorate. So I don't know about you, I graduated with bachelor's and master's, and initially did a matriculated master's, worked in the field for 5 years, and then went back for my doctorate. So with the initial master's, I didn't know anything about nutrition. So here I'm as a physical therapist prescribing exercise to people, but not ensuring that they had the right nutrition to put the muscle on. Right. It really wasn't until I got my doctorate, and everybody says, oh, you don't really need that doctorate. And then after having it, I'm like, wow, what we're doing as therapists could actually be considered dangerous if we're not paying attention to certain things. Right. And then, as you said, in the clinic, they don't give us the time to address that. So, here, do these exercises, and the person's not sleeping. They're not getting the deep sleep to actually put on the muscle. Right. They're not eating the right diet, or they're not digesting to be able to extract the amino acids out to rebuild the muscle. Like, there's so much to it. And once I realized how like potentially irresponsible I could be, as a therapist, and I didn't want to be that, that's when I decided I'm going to start my own practice. Like I can't do this for patients at once. Not only is there a liability issue, but also it's not what I signed up for. I signed up for helping people with fitness and improving their fitness. And, I believe a musculoskeletal injury can actually be the key to changing our overall health and fitness, because you've got a captive audience when somebody is hurt like that. So started my own practice back in 2007, moved back to my hometown in upstate New York, and started Carpenter Physical Therapy, a holistic physical therapy practice, and did physical therapy my way. And I was going to show the world that holistic healthy therapy could be done in an insurance model.
Mm.
And I have to say, thank God for COVID, because
Mm.
it was a challenge to practice good therapy one-on-one, and to stay one-on-one, and make ends meet in that world, especially in New York State, where we had a $42 reimbursement. So yeah, I had actually branched off and started to do some other things, other coaching, health and wellness coaching outside of the physical therapy world, actually just to keep feeding the practice for many, many years. But my true passion still lies within the sustainability of the human body, and whatever that means to an individual. Health and vitality, to me, it's all about living a vital life, a life full of vital energy, not a healthy life, because so many times we're labeled as we're healthy, but we don't feel healthy, we don't feel good. And vitality is about living the continuation of a meaningful and purposeful existence. So I want to feel good enough every day to continue with that.
So would that be the way you'd break down those kind of definitions? If we can, get a little granular of the healthy, vitality, maybe even fitness. How do you define maybe those three? Is there just overlap? Do you break those down? And this is a fun conversation. I always like to, specifically fitness, again, that being my business, fit care. If you focus on your fitness, you can avoid the healthcare space. But I think we touched on before the call the fact that most people kind of misunderstand fitness or exercise, or how those all interplay. I'd love to hear again your take on that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, health for me, I don't like that term health, because I feel like it's the third party payment system, has the insurance companies and pharmaceutical companies have health taken care of, like, you're healthy, and the ranges of even how they determine how we're healthy based on blood is based on the average population. And I don't want to be average these days. Like, I don't know about you, but if we're comparing to averages, average health of the human population, I don't want to be average. I would definitely want to.
Just for to put that into a little practical sense, because I 100% love that point, is I always use that example when people talk about vitamin D. When they go to the doctor, the normal range for most labs and doctors is 30 to 100. If you're at 29, the doctor freaks out. They're going to put you on some supplementation. If you're at 31, you're within range, you're fine. But the optimal range might be all the way up to like 60. Some argue, again, I don't know if we don't have to get specifically into the numbers, or we're not diagnosing here, folks. But 60 to 70, somewhere in that middle of that range, probably ideal, and the difference between surviving and thriving. But I always use that example to your point about those lab values and being compared to the normal, again, population versus, again, what's optimal for the person in front of us.
Absolutely, absolutely. Like, are they feeling good? And that vitamin D is a good one. I'll just plug a shout out on vitamin D. Vitamin D OH 25 tells us nothing by itself. We really need to look at the OH 125, and we've got to look at the ratio. Because there are cases where somebody's vitamin D OH 25 can look like it's low, but the 125 is high, and if the ratio is off, they're going to pull calcium from the bones. Something also that I think it's important for us physical therapists to pay attention to. I once had a patient lay down, bone in the midst of her thigh muscle, like right in front of me. And that was what was at play. The doctor put her on vitamin D after a fracture, and her ratio was off. And, and that has to do with cell danger response. And that's beyond this conversation, but just something that's really important, that there's more to, the lab values than just these averages. So that's how I feel about health. So I've replaced it with vitality. Vitality by definition is the continuation of a meaningful and purposeful existence. So like, do I have enough energy to go through life and have, meaningful and purposeful existence? Am I able to live in alignment with my purpose? Do I have the energy to do that? And I really reframed that in the midst of my own sickness and burnout, and realized like I was getting up every day, dragging myself out of bed, but it wasn't purposeful use. And then when it comes to fitness, fitness to me is so foundational, but I think that fitness has been, for some people, it has been defined as, going to the gym and the routine that you do of, exercise, and there's a certain, stigma associated with it. But really, it's the physical activity piece. Like our fitness routine, our daily fitness routine, we need physical activity as human beings. And one of the things I talk about in my chapter is the difference between physical activity and exercise. Like, sitting is the new smoking kind of thing, because we need to move. We are designed to move. But it's the physical activity that we need, from a joint standpoint, going to the gym like a gerbil and being repetitive on a machine where the muscle actually develops memory and it doesn't take the same amount of energy over and over, isn't quite the same as playing tag with your kids, right? Like playing tag with the kids will kick your butt. And we've got some high intensity, low intensity. It's actually, and that would be determined as physical activity. But that to me has greater benefits than, going to the gym and being on the treadmill repetitively. Or remember the bear crawl and the crab walk from elementary school or even high school, and sports.
Or from my session this morning that I put a client through. Yes. But yes. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Like those are the kinds of things they can be so tough, and from a joint movement, I think it's really important. We also remember the primal movements, right? What our ancestors have to do. How is our body designed to move? So in designing a functional fitness routine. So to me, it's about a functional fitness routine, not just being at the gym, doing repetitive movements over and over where we can totally, zone out and the body's just going, we're disconnected from the body. The body's doing one thing, but the mind is totally disconnected.
Yeah. It's funny you said that. And I know I kind of brought it up that my Whoop, my biotracker, detected my dog walking earlier, which I was a little surprised by, but yeah, I guess I got a little better workout than I realized because it was very cold outside. I did record a little video, so I'm going to post that whenever anyone's on the social medias or if they're watching live. I did post a little promo for our book, Healthy for Life, guys. If I didn't mention that, February 4th, we're launching. Help us on Amazon, become a bestseller, all that good stuff. If you need an advanced copy and you're watching this, you can reach out to Amanda, myself, any of the co-authors. Our website is still not launched. I'm gonna be, we'll get that going one of these days. But yeah, so that fitness piece though, for sure. And I talk about, I don't know if you know the model, I kind of give a little credit to CrossFit and Greg Glassman of, you have the kind of fuel gauge, And on one end, you have the disability, injury, rehab piece, and then you get to wellness being, and again, we use these definitions. I love this conversation again of World Health Organization just says health is a lack of sickness, which I think we can say we can do a little better than that. But anyway, that wellness, however we define that, and then all the way on this side, that fuel gauge, the more you're pushing toward fitness, however, again, we define that in their definition. The one I say I use the most is work capacity over broad time modal domains. How much work can your body do? But that's the idea. And again, as you were talking, I was also thinking of longevity, this whole space of longevity. Dr. Peter Attia talks about, the difference of lifespan versus just health span. So again, we can increase our lives 10 more years, 20 more years. We can go into the debate of like every cigarette you smoke takes whatever, 11 minutes off your life or whatever. But yeah, when you're thinking about vitality and lifespan, your actual ability to, health span being the different term there. And I think, again, vitality is a much better word because you get into that confusion. So yeah, I love that concept. But so exercise beyond calories and heartbeats, you're talking about beyond tracking that. Is that where the title comes from?
Yeah. So, well, a couple little pieces in there. The whole idea of calories in, calories out. That idea of if we expend more energy than we take in, then we're going to lose weight. Exercise doesn't exactly work that way, nor does digestion and the utilization of our food. So, another thing I do on the side, I'm a functional genomic consultant. And so I've been looking at people's functional genomics, the patterns around whether or not genes express for years now. And so when it comes to the ability to actually absorb our calories, either from glucose, from carbohydrates, or from fats, we can actually look at that. How well does the body do? Is there maybe some potential dysfunctions? So some people can be intaking fat, but you can't count the calories because they don't have the ability to extract it. Or they have the ability to extract, but not to deposit in the cell. So there's so much more to this than just in and out, because there's a process beyond. And so that's the calories piece. And then the heartbeat piece is really, we used to look at determining overall cardiovascular health as far as we run that mile. We take our pulse, we run that mile, and how quickly does our pulse come back down to normal? And then that was a determination of fitness. Well, really, the HeartMath Institute has done a lot of research around this, and have at this point in time well over 400 peer-reviewed journal articles published on the topic. The true determinant of cardiovascular health is the adaptability of the heart, the ability to adapt and return to its baseline after an emotional trigger as well. So somebody makes us angry, how quickly do we reground? So that's what I mean beyond just the heartbeats. So we think we're strengthening the cardiovascular system by working out and doing cardiovascular exercise. But one, it's not always the pattern that I see. In fact, it's the least consistent pattern that I see when I look at the functional genomics of individuals. But two, we've also got to look at the heart rate variability. So if I'm exercising in a high heart rate state and my mind is thinking about, my whole to-do list, and I'm all stressed out about what's going on, I'm likely in an incoherent rhythm. So I'm actually not improving. I'm not in a coherent pattern where I'm improving my heart rate variability and the adaptability of that heart. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, for a lot of folks, I think that term heart rate variability, they might have heard, they might have seen on social media, that even if they have a Whoop, an Oura Ring, hopefully those folks are a little more aware of what HRV truly means. But can you just define for folks who might have never heard that term before?
Yeah, so heart rate variability is really the capacity of the heart, the adaptability of the heart. And we can determine cardiovascular health by heart rate variability. It's associated with all-cause mortality, and again, well documented in the research, but not necessarily used as the determinant of health for baseline in the healthcare system, right? We use cholesterol and some other markers, but really, truly, it's heart rate variability. So the rhythm of the heart that improves heart rate variability is the coherent rhythm, and an incoherent rhythm actually, detracts from our heart rate variability, if you will. So we can actually expand the capacity of the heart through the rhythm.
Yeah, the way I think about it, and again, you're certainly deeper into this than I am, but when I speak to folks about heart rate variability, HRV, is we think about 60 beats per minute as our pulse or heart rate, and then again, a stagnant or stale heart rate is there's no variability if you're literally pulsing every 1.0, 1.0, 1.0, and that's where so would you call that incoherent if that's a lower heart rate variability?
Yeah. So another way to explain it, the way that I've found that can be helpful is if we think of it's the rhythm, the consistency of the rhythm of our in breath and out breath. So if we think of when we expand our chest, when we breathe in, there's pressure on the heart. When we breathe out, there's relief pressure, right? So the consistency of that rhythm, when I'm breathing in, there's pressure on my heart. It's not going to be able to expand quite the same way. So it might not expand to 60 beats. It might be, 58.7,
Sure.
So the millisecond difference.
But it's also in between every single beat. So it might be, my understanding is the first beat is 0.7, the next one's 1.1, then the next one's 0.8, then the next one's 1.2, and then so is that accurate, or are we looking at it more? And I know there's different calculations and algorithms there.
Yeah, we're looking at the consistency of the pattern. So does it consistently elevate and then consistently come down? Consistently elevate, consistently come down.
How much of that is
we're looking at the wave.
Yeah. How much of that is the electrical signal versus kind of the breathing pattern? Again,
all of it, right?
Both?
Like I'm just using the breathing pattern to our breathing pattern and movement actually changes. That's the reason the aura is not going to measure your HRV during the day, because it's actually measuring it at night when you're still. You've got to be still to measure it. When you're moving around, it's hard to measure HRV.
Yeah, I got the HRV maybe in 2010 monitor. I think it was 8 weeks out. Joel Jameson, I believe, was one of the earlier introducers of that. And you had to theoretically do it first thing. You have to have it by your bed. You're hopefully you don't waking up with an alarm, because that might mess up your HRV and make it less valid. And you'd have to lay there, put the heart strap on, and have it measure for what took like 5 or 10 minutes for the whole process. And then you'd get a score, and based on that, it would give you kind of what now the Whoop or the Aura do on a daily basis of you're good to go, or you're not very well recovered, maybe take a rest day, that kind of thing. So for the practicality of bringing that all together. So where you're coming in, but the HRV varies day to day. And I think I heard you say in another podcast that HRV is going to be one of the best determinants of our all-cause mortality and how long we live and how vital we are. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, absolutely. So, we can see a change in HRV, and with a cold coming on, you'll actually see the shift before you get the symptoms.
Yeah.
Right.
And the Whoop actually, I know, sorry to cut you off there, was actually published in New England Journal of Medicine and things like that for its biometrics, in the ability to detect COVID before even the nasal swab, which is pretty cool. And I noticed that, and there was the 1% club when you're fully sick, and you're only 1% recovered when you're getting hit pretty hard with COVID or something like that. I do want to ask also, comparing that to VO2 max, which is another main metric. So do you think those is just another data point, or do you think we should get rid of VO2 max and be focused a lot more on the HRV, or is it again kind of why not use both?
Why not use both? Like
Sure.
I think we need to use both. I think we need to look at one of the things that I've seen in coaching clients over the years is passive. They're going to be more engaged with. And what I mean by that as a passive device, like an Oura ring that I just have to put on and go about my day, versus something like, an Inner Balance, which is a heart mouth device that I have to plug in and actually do. Now, the active device actually gives me the rhythm of the heart. So there's so much more information in a different way in that than the HRV. And the algorithms, coaching to the Aura. So I've been coaching to the Aura since Aura came into existence. So version 1, I actually have a version 1 and a version 3 Aura ring. And what you said about COVID is so true. Like I actually saw COVID happen. I was wearing my Aura ring during that time, and you could see the shifts happening before you even, felt it. So the algorithm is programmed a little bit more towards parasympathetic, which is relaxation. And I think what's really important to point out is coherence, which is the rhythm of the heart that improves our heart rate variability, is not relaxation. We oftentimes say to most people, oh, you need to relax. It's actually flow state we want. It's a perfect rhythm of an in-breath is the sympathetic state, the gas pedal, and an out-breath is the parasympathetic, the brake. So the sympathetic nervous system is not bad. It's just the high energy system. It's just where we're burning gas, right? So it's just a high heart rate. The sympathetic nervous system is the higher heart rate system, and parasympathetic, the lower heart rate system. And so it's really, we want this gentle rhythm between the two of those. That's coherence and that's flow state. So, every athlete who has, had to perform and you don't hear anybody around you, you're just, doing your thing, that's flow state. We can access flow state, this coherent, pattern throughout our day while we're working with patients, while we're driving cars, but we can't be relaxed if we need to be using our brain or driving our car, right? So it's not a state of parasympathetic we always want to be in. It's actually the flow state. We want to be in a coherent state, regardless of where the heart rate is.
Yeah, this is one of the reasons I try to get every one of my clients, if I see them in my garage, wherever I'm seeing them, in another gym, even if it's a busy environment, they're coming from their probably busy lives to work out with me and get the most out of that hour or whatever the session calls for. But the first thing I do is I have them do a little deep breathing, deep belly breathing. Again, I don't know if you agree with the physiology. My understanding is, again, you get that deep belly breathing, diaphragmatic, you're massaging the vagus nerve. That says, hey, snap out of it, or at least switches you a little bit, resetting the nervous system. And then we can, again, adapt and modify and say, hey, okay, we might be doing assault bike sprints and going really hard, but we want to build up to that. And we kind of want to reset that nervous system. So it's not to say you're about to do an hour workout, let's totally relax you. Exactly. So yeah, I love that, that distinction and that importance of understanding that. I do want to ask, again, based on these wearables, the Whoop and the Aura we keep talking about, there's many others out there, I suppose, not as popular. Apple Watch, way less accurate, I think, in some of these things. But yeah, I guess that's my question based on the research and your understanding. Would you say that we should be putting a good amount of stock outside of maybe just, like it's, again, we don't, I think in our fitness space, our health space, you're saying like, yeah, the scale, the number you weigh is something, it's a marker of fitness. HRV might be a much better marker of fitness, but are these wearables accurate enough that we can start saying, hey, like, let's use that data to say, are we making a change over 6 months, over a year, et cetera? And is that science enough, or is it just, maybe it's not the most accurate thing, but we're still using it as a tool?
Yeah, great question. And I would say, based on using it in my coaching practice, my coaching practice is actually primarily partially chronically ill people and partially executives, high performance, waking up at 4:30 in the morning, like overperforming. So I have, both of those. And I've been using the Oura Ring and the Inner Balance. Those are the two devices that I use, and glucose monitors. Love glucose monitors as well. And so what I would say is, we can't compare to each other. And, are they accurate? It doesn't necessarily matter. It's a trend. Let's look at our trend, right? So if I'm 16 one day and 25 another day, whether it's accurate or not, it shows a trend shift, right? It shows a difference. And that's what we have to pay attention to. It's just information, and how we use that information is what's key. So do I wake up and I look at my Oura and it tells me that I better be careful, so I better be careful? Or do I check in with my body first, see how I'm feeling, and realize, okay, I didn't sleep so well last night, or I really pushed my body hard yesterday. I need to take it easy today. So I don't think we should be giving our power to a device to tell us how to feel. I think we use the device to validate how we're feeling. And, what's really interesting is I had this experience during COVID that really surprised me, related to heart rate variability. So it was the first time I really got together with friends during COVID, and I'm a very social person, and COVID did not scare me at all. Like, especially working in the chronic illness, tick-borne illness space, it was just another virus. It didn't scare me. So there wasn't fear related to that. So we finally get together with friends and make gluten-free pizzas for dinner and have a couple of drinks. And I'm out late. Like, I'm to bed by 10 o'clock. Like, I prioritize sleep for high performance is like everything to me. So I was out late, really late for me, like got home at like 1 o'clock, went to bed, and the dog wakes me up early. So the story that I'm telling myself, I'm like, oh man, like that was a terrible night's sleep, had a couple drinks, didn't have a good meal, was up so late, like terrible. I look at my Oura, and my HRV is the highest it had been in 2 months. So that social connection for me, and what that actually did to my vitality, was so much more. And I would have let the fact that I only got, 4.5 hours sleep, and it wasn't good sleep, and the judgment of a drink and this and that. So that was an eye opener to me of like, what does self-care look like? Self-care for me is making sure that I have social engagements and prioritizing that, because it actually gives me energy. For some people, social engagement drains energy, and they have to know when to utilize that energy expenditure. So I think it's really important that all of us know how we're using our vital energy. Where am I giving, where am I taking?
Or maybe it was the extra 200 grams of carbs that you were depleted on. No.
That's so true, right? I
Yeah.
Yes,
No, but
it's true. You're right. You're absolutely right. Like, and that's what's fun when we hack with each other, right? But the story I was telling, the belief in the word belief is the word lie. So we can believe what we want to believe. The story that I was telling myself was the social connection.
and again, that's one of those huge components to overall health that, again, is very hard to measure. And when folks start talking about this, again, we had recently, you've probably seen the Surgeon General of the United States under President Obama and President Biden, Vivek Murthy, I believe is his name, wrote a book called Connect, I believe. I don't want to mess that up. And basically pointing out the epidemic in our country of loneliness, and how every day of loneliness is the equivalent of smoking a pack of cigarettes, physiologically, again, in just terms of negative pieces. But again, very hard to measure. And that's where using these devices, working with a coach to help understand what do those numbers mean, getting a better sense of it. There's the story we tell ourselves, and there's also like let's look at trends, let's look at things over time. And again, you're not gonna, even if you're trying to lose 10 pounds over the next month or whatever, and have those goals, there's definitely bigger stories and bigger pieces of that puzzle that we need to look at. So I love that you're bringing all that together. We joked about the maybe it was 300 grams of carbs. You mentioned continuous glucose monitor, and the fact that now you don't need a prescription. That's a recent change as well. And so tell us about your experience with that.
Yeah, so there's a new one out on the market called Lingo, and I have no connections with them, everybody, like no connections whatsoever. But they're that same company, Abbott, that's been out for a while. So you used to, in the US, Canada actually was direct. You could buy it direct, but in the US you needed a prescription. So I've also been coaching to glucose monitors since 2016. And what I have actually found, even with my diabetic clients, the highest blood sugar that anybody will ever have is not from eating, it's from stress. So haven't eaten in 3 hours and suddenly you spike because somebody irritates you. It's like, damn, I would have rather ate a cookie, So you can educate somebody all day about how their emotions impact their health, but when they see it, they start to become empowered. And that's what I believe is in empowering clients to choose. Like, we're here to point out possibilities and trends, and they get to decide how they want to move forward. We're not here to use fear to, get them to do something. I'm here to empower them. And I believe that to be true about you as well. So a glucose monitor can be so incredibly empowering because, again, the story we're telling ourselves is such and such is bad. My own father, who's been managing, he's a borderline diabetic and has been managing for years with a continuous glucose monitor, and a bit of my coaching, thought that dark chocolate was so bad for him, but he loved his dark chocolate. So he has a glucose monitor in for the first time. We're going back years now. This is like 8 years ago, and realizes it didn't spike his sugar. But yet he was judging himself that he shouldn't have it. And you know what spiked his sugar more than anything? Like, it spiked him to like 486.
Grapes.
Oatmeal.
Oh, yeah. There you go.
Now, my mom was giving him oatmeal because what do they say about oatmeal? Lowers cholesterol.
Yeah.
So he hated oatmeal, but yet she was giving it to him, thought it was good. So see, these are the things that we do.
Yeah.
And intuitively, our body knows better. So I have found between some sort of device for heart rate variability, my devices I use, like I said, the inner balance from HeartMath and the Oura Ring, and glucose monitoring, and we can really determine the overall, health and fitness of a client or patient.
Yeah, I love that. And it reminds me of a quick anecdote I want to share that I think is useful and is going to tie and wrap us up back to our book here is I run a dad's group every Sunday morning with a couple of friends of mine all over the country. And one of them is taking, again, dad's group, so parenting skills, all that good stuff. And one of his kids is a little overweight, recently dealing with that. And he brought up that, like, hey, am I doing okay? Because there's some of us, again, are geeked out on all this science and gluten-free and what products are best and all this good stuff. And he asked about this red lentil pasta, and is that a good alternative? And I'm like, yeah, well, technically this, and like, there's more to weight than calories in, calories out, and and I'm trying to go into it. And then another one of our wise dads in the group kind of said, hey, did she like it? Did she notice a difference? And she liked it. and she didn't notice a difference. She didn't say anything, at least. And so he's like, hey, that's a win. Like, let's keep building on that, and let's focus on that versus me being over here, like catching up my whole thing. But yeah, and then this is where it all comes back together to our book and our subtitle, or is there a better name? Is it subtitle? I guess that's the name of it. Foundational skills for parents, teachers, mentors, and the kids they love. And it is not just for folks with kids in their lives. But I want to see if we can wrap up maybe, and you give us, without giving away the entire book or your entire chapter, of some of those skills that you want folks to walk away with.
Yeah, I would say the most foundational skill is to learn to listen to the intuitive innate wisdom that the body has, right? Like you just said with that example of the pasta. You know, I have found that there's always a reason that the body craves something. Sometimes it's an emotional, but there's always a reason the body craves something. And it's not always a bad reason the body is craving something, right? Like I have actually found people to be in a very poor place chemically in their body where they needed sugar, but yet they were disciplining themselves away from sugar. And it was literally a life or death situation. In the chronic illness world, I've seen that time and time and again in something called subclinical porphyria. The glucose monitor proves that. Now they were craving the sugar, but their mind was saying it's not good for me. No, I can't have it. So I would say the most foundational skill is listen to the body. And then just try to make it a little bit healthier. So if you're craving a Twinkie, well, I'm pretty sure our ancestors didn't have access to Twinkies. There's probably an emotional connection. Because if you really took all the chemicals out of Twinkie, like it's the chemicals that make the Twinkie good, right? So when we're craving something that is a food product, right, made in a factory with things that we wouldn't have in our kitchen, it's not foundational. But if you are craving something foundational, there's a reason for that. And the same thing with exercise. If your body wants to move, then let it move. But if there's the mind inside saying, get your ass out there, go do this, you're going to be overweight, then maybe what the body needs is actually rest. So there's also a situation called cell danger response where the body will kick its own ass into a parasympathetic, downregulated, metabolic shutdown state that we shouldn't be disciplined out of. So to summarize it yet again, listen to the body. The body, Sachin Patel says the body is the best doctor. It's so true. The body always knows, and then look for the reason later rather than disciplining, changing, not giving your body or your child's body what they need and finding out you did the wrong thing.
Yeah, and I'm doing dry January. We're toward the end of it now, and I know in the nutrition space too, a lot of folks warn about dry January is you're just going to start craving all sorts of sugars because if you're having a drink a night with dinner, you're hitting some of those glucose spikes, and it's a little more about the sugar, and you might end up just playing with that. So listening to that again, and folks do dry January or they do Whole30 challenges, and then it seems like day 31 or the next month they're celebrating it by doing the opposite of what that month is. So yeah, I'm not going to go on a bender on February 1st. Although I will celebrate the book on February 4th. We're going to keep plugging that. I did find Snackwell's The Devil's Food, if you remember that. Those little things. That was in the 90s when they came out as like low fat or no fat or whatever. And it was just like, that's not a healthy option. But anyway, I did miss that. Again, psychologically, I'm like, I can taste what that feels like and the dopamine hit it gives me just even looking at that. That's the world we're living in, folks. And huge shout out. And I would have loved to talk a little more. We are running a little on time, but Rob Wolf, Wired to Eat, if you're familiar with that, I had him as a guest on here.
Awesome.
Excellent resource. And he talks about the continuous glucose monitor for 7-day carb tolerance test. Again, measuring, you mentioned oatmeal as a big spiker. I know Dr. Rhonda Patrick talks about, again, I said grapes because she did a lot of these different experiments, and she finds grapes just spike her so much. So she's basically eliminated grapes from her life. But yeah, a lot going on there. Again, I think we can talk for multiple other hours. I'm sure hopefully we have a few more opportunities over the next few months and years. But a pleasure to chat, Miss Dr. Amanda Carpenter. Dr. Carpenter.
Thank you so much for having me on, and thank you so much for supporting our book and our work together. Appreciate you.
Absolutely. Looking forward to this book launch. Again, folks, if you want to go and get an advanced reader copy before February 4th, you got to reach out to one of us. We have the link. We can get you things. We will have the ebook available for $1.99 if you can buy it on February 4th. That'll help us reach bestseller status, get into more hands, get the information out there. That's what we're trying to do. Again, one more shout out to my sponsor, drinkelement.com. Stay salty. Make sure you drink it with a lot of water. It is Meant to be salty. 1,000 milligrams of sodium balanced with magnesium and potassium. And there's a 100% money back guarantee. So if you order and you don't like it, you can get your money back. They're very good customer service. One of the best companies I've seen there. With all that said, I hope you guys got 1% better, at least 1% better today. Thank you, Dr. Carpenter. Stay warm up there in upstate New York. And we will sign off and see you guys.